Hello, and welcome to the Let's Talk Transformation podcasts. Let's Talk Transformation is very happy to participate in this fourth edition of Podcasthon. So, what's Podcasthon? So, for 1 week, which is from the 14th to 20th of March, thousands of podcasts and podcasters will be highlighting a charity of their choice. The objective is to bring together like-minded people for further collective outreach and impact. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming the Freedom and Justice Partnership to the show, as well as its co-founder, Mark Preston. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Susie.
It's an absolute pleasure, Mark. The Freedom and Justice Partnership is a UK registered charity founded by yourself and your partner.
Yeah, my co-founder, Carl Beach.
Your Carl Beach, I didn't have his name, okay. And it leverages philanthropy, partnerships, technology, but with a specific objective, of course, to bring education and inclusion to the child miners of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Which is not unlike your earlier career in Compassion UK, where our paths first met, of course. Another charity looking to help children rise out of poverty, and I know you're passionate about that, Mark, and that you're also passionate about storytelling. Which is something you do in another venture at Start Bay Enterprises. We can come to that later. But can you tell me more about the story of the Freedom and Justice Partnership and how you and Carl decided to set it up?
I'd love to. So go back to January 2023. I read a book called Cobalt Red. And this book was all about the artisanal miners of the DRC and how that a very high percentage of the world's critical minerals come from the DRC, and particularly cobalt, which is used to cool batteries in smartphones, electric cars, and laptops. About 70% of the world's supply comes from the DRC, and something like 20% of all of the cobalt that comes out of the DRC is from artisanal miners. And so artisanal miners sounds like a very quaint term. Sounds
It
like a
does.
sourdough. It sounds like something you get in a lovely little bakery where you are in France, I think. But
Yeah.
actually, artisanal mining is something really quite horrific. It's where people, for very little money, sometimes a couple of dollars a day, dig with their bare hands with no safety equipment. They climb down into lethal tunnels that are built by amateurs. Sometimes those tunnels collapse. And so something like 20% of the minerals that are coming out of the DRC, it is said, are from this artisanal mining source. So that's men, women, and sadly as many as 200,000 children in the
Wow.
DRC is the latest figure I've seen, um, are working in this way. So I read this book, January 2023, and it occurred to me that what came back to me was one of the great academics of the 20th century is a man called C.S. Lewis, who you
Mm.
will know from the Narnia books, I'm
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, the wardrobes.
And yeah, exactly, yeah. And so everybody loves Narnia and the writings of C.S. Lewis, but he's also a great theologian, great academic,
Mm.
Oxford academic from the 20th century. And he said something that stayed with me for a really long time. He said, men, his writing, men have a tendency to feel without acting. And the more they feel without acting, ultimately they lose the ability to feel.
Hmm.
Paraphrase, but
Mm.
essentially, we feel things all the time and we never act on them. And then what happens is we become so numb and
Yeah.
desensitized to everything that we just don't act on anything.
Mm.
And then we start to lose the ability to feel altogether. So we become completely desensitized to things that once would have moved us greatly. So I was reading Cobalt Red, and this book quote from C.S. Lewis came to mind again.
Mm.
And so I was mulling on it for a few months and not really doing much about it, apart from I read the book again.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was I was working for a big children's charity, I mean, a huge children's charity, enormous children's charity, helping more than 2 million children around the world.
Mm.
And I'm driving an electric car, trying to do my part, trying to do the right thing. So I'm there thinking, how is it that I'm working for this charity that's helping 2 million children, and I'm driving a car that
Mm.
I now know contains about 8 kilograms of cobalt, and I'm doing the math, 70% of it comes from the Congo, and 20% of that comes from artisanal miners.
Mm.
I started to feel really uncomfortable about it. So it got to the summer of June 2023, and I said to my wife over dinner one day, I think I'm going to go to an artisanal cobalt mine in the DRC. Could you
Wow.
pass the potatoes, please, sweetheart? And you can imagine the
I,
response was because I'd not mentioned anything about this, and so she was quite taken aback. But she said, "Look, if you really think that this is something you should do, then I'll support you in it. But I
mm,
am really worried about it." So we didn't really have much of a plan, other than she said to me, "I don't want you to go on your own." So and that's where Carl comes in.
enter
I
Carl.
yes, so Carl's a great friend of mine, a hugely talented entrepreneurial chap, and he and I have been friends for a while through work. And I said to him one day on a call, "Hey mate, I'm going to go to a mine in the DRC to see what's happening."
Do you want to come?
I could just see it in his face, Susie. He was looking
Mm.
at me as if to say, "Ask me, ask me."
Go on.
So I asked him, and he said, "Yeah, all right." And that was that. So about maybe not as many as 12 months after that, maybe 9 months after that conversation, he and I ended up on a plane to the Congo. We got ourselves visas. We met a guy who knew quite a lot of people in the Congo,
Mm.
and we ended up getting inside one of these artisanal cobalt mines through. I've got just the most incredible. I do a whole evening talk about the wild stories we've got from the Congo and
I can
how we,
imagine.
with no organizational cover, managed to get inside this mine. I mean, Susie, these mines are guarded by 50 machine guns. These are,
So how did you get in, Mark? So I've got two questions. One, how did you both get in? And two,
yeah,
come back to feeling, what did it feel like stepping into that mine?
yeah. So we had this guy who was Congolese but living in London, and he had a desire to do something to help the children of the Congo. So a mutual friend connected me with him. We had some conversations, and he knew quite a lot of people.
Okay.
He was quite a well-connected guy in the Congo, and so he said, "Look, I can basically, you need some money, and we'll pay some people to take us in." And so we ended up, honestly, it's the most bizarre scene. We ended up doing this 5 hour truck journey with this guy, this enormous Congolese guy who was um, kind of all blinged up. He had a Rolex, he had a Armani gilet on.
Did you know him?
No, we didn't
No.
know him.
Okay,
And then
wow.
sat in the front. So he was driving. It was his truck, and then sat in the front seat on the passenger side was this colonel from the Congolese army who apparently was there to keep us safe, right?
Okay.
So these two guys are on the payroll in somehow. I don't know. I'm just like paying money, so get me in. And so these two guys are sat in the front. We don't know them, and then the three of us, so my Congolese friend from London and Carl and me, are sat in the back squeezed. We're all quite big guys, all squeezed in the back for 5 hours. The driver loves his gangster rap music, so that's like blaring out for 5 hours. Halfway on this journey, the clutch went on the car, on the truck. So then we're like stood on the side of the road in the Congo, miles from anywhere, with the only two white faces, Carl and I, that we'd seen all day.
Mm,
And anyway, long story short, all of that got resolved, and we ended up going into the mine a couple of days later.
wow. A couple
Um,
of days later. Okay.
yeah, so we had a lot of hanging around. So, to be honest, the guy we were with, I wouldn't trust him with much, to be honest. And
But he got you there.
He wouldn't take us in until we paid for his new clutch, basically.
Oh, really?
So he made
Okay.
us hang around in a hotel we wasted a day there. So a couple of days later, we got inside the mine. And to give him credit, he got us in. So,
Mm,
he got us in. I felt really nervous. I mean, I know people will think this is not true and I'm being falsely humble, but I'm not a particularly brave person,
mm,
really,
okay.
not naturally. But I just really wanted to do this. And so when we were getting in, I felt, yeah, quite nervous.
Mm,
So as well as all of the guns guarding these mines,
which makes you
in,
feel nervous.
which makes you feel it doesn't help.
No.
So, and then on the inside of the mines, you've got all these young guys who I learn are armed government agents checking that nobody that's not supposed to be there
Oh,
is
wow.
inside the mine. And so these guys just drove up to us relatively soon on their motorbikes and said,
Who are
"Who are
you?
these guys? You know, what on earth are these guys doing here?" So, but we met, we met loads and loads of kids in there, loads of families in there, and we took a bag of shoes and just gave, because a lot of the kids are mining these minerals in
Bare feet.
flip-flops.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just terrifying, Susie. So people in the UK had given us shoes, and I packed as many as I could into a big bag, and then
mm,
so we had some footballs and skipping ropes and stuff. And so we
mm,
just gave all this stuff away. We chatted to the families. We took about 340 photographs and videos inside the mine, and yeah, then we basically got away. But that, I could tell you a lot more, and
mm,
I could bore you all day. I won't. All that to say that it's the most horrific thing I've ever seen anywhere in
mm,
the world. And I've traveled a lot to some of the
mm,
world's poorest places, but this is
mm.
hidden from sight, and
Purposefully.
very much so.
Mm,
And it's hidden systemically.
mm,
Plausible deniability is part of the architecture of our supply chains.
of course. Yeah, yeah.
And and what I wanted to do was cut right down to the ground level and see for myself what I'd read in the book. So we came back, we escaped. There's another story about how we escaped because we nearly got stopped arrested at the airport. But
Oh
anyway, we managed to
no.
get out with everything untouched. And we then started the process of founding the Freedom and Justice Partnership. And our vision was to get as many children out of the mines and into school, because nobody wants a device like this
No.
that's powered by child labor or slave labor. We want to be able to choose to buy one of these without that being a factor.
And how realistic do you think that is? Well, given I'm thinking, as you were talking at the beginning, I was thinking, and now we're just exponentially speeding up the process of all these types of things, smartphones, data centers, the use of AI, electric cars, things like that. So, and just want to come back to the word that you used, which was escape, which says it all for me. It's like we got away, we got out, we escaped. So, I'm only imagining that it must have been awful in those mines. So, how, what does it take to bridge that gap, Mark? And is that gap getting bigger as we speak?
Yes and no. So um, we're trying to fight a ground war and an air war.
Mm,
So what we're trying to do as a charity is fund education places for children who were working in the mines and now into school. Really, you might have seen, I think you
I,
saw on
yeah,
LinkedIn actually recently, didn't
yeah,
you? That we funded the places of 30 former child miners in school recently, which is awesome.
yeah,
So
which
we're
it
really,
is awesome. Yeah, yeah.
really chuffed with that, really pleased with that. Um, so that's great. We want to do as much more of that as we possibly can. So that's the work on the ground, because to fix this system is going to take years and years and
Of
years. And in
course.
the meantime, you've got hundreds of thousands of families and children that it's not their fault they're in this position.
Mm,
And even if we fix the system for the future, they're still affected by it today.
mm,
So we want to do what we can to help their plight, because
mm,
it's completely unjust. So
mm,
we want to do that. But then also we want to work at the air war level, if you like, and that really is looking at advocacy. So Carl and I think maybe I've done a bit more of this, been into Parliament on numerous occasions,
mm,
speaking to committees. I've spoken with the chair of the Joint Human Rights Committee that straddles both the Lords and the Commons.
mm,
Last or 2 weeks ago, I was speaking at the launch of a report about critical minerals. I'm meeting another senior member of parliament in 2 weeks' time. So we're really trying to fight for this policy area, because
mm,
there is movement in this now. And what we're seeing is the EU are bringing in a new set of legislation called the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, snappy little title.
mm,
And that's going to make big companies responsible for reporting on the integrity of their supply chain at all levels,
Mm-hmm.
which is huge.
Yeah, it is huge. I was just thinking that's another massive system.
That's a massive
Yeah.
system. And the reality is, and this is something that Start Bay is getting involved with now, is that most businesses are not ready for that. So
No.
you might, I think this new EU legislation is going to apply to organizations that have more than $1.5 billion of revenue, global revenue. And you might think, well, that doesn't affect my business. Well, it does affect your business
Mm,
if you are a supplier
mm,
to one of those companies.
mm,
And there are lots of UK SMEs that supply some of these big, majors across
mm.
the EU and the UK. So the cascading compliance effects are going to be really significant. So Start Bay is involved in a feasibility study shortly that will look at how do UK SMEs
Mm,
help to prepare themselves for the new compliance regime that if it doesn't apply directly to them soon, it will be applying to many of their customers. And so
mm.
we are looking at a tech platform that helps them to understand what's in the products that they make.
Okay. And
So
therefore the supply chain that makes them. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So
Mm,
that's pending. But I know the main thing you wanted to talk to me about today was Freedom Justice Partnership, and so for us, it's very much a case of working with governments
mm,
and policymakers, working with corporate leaders so they understand what's in their supply chain, and then finally working with the wider public to help them understand what actually is going into their devices
mm,
and how they can make better informed choices. And then, of course, we want to make as many grants as we can to
mm,
our partner on the ground that is doing a fantastic job of getting children out of the mines and into school.
mm. Which, I mean, that it's brilliant and it goes through this sort of human process of awareness, reflection, action. If I understand, then I can think differently. And if I think differently, then I can maybe act differently.
Mm.
How do you see that playing out, Mark? What's your vision for the next couple of years? Do you have targets or dreams for how many children? Which is the immediate
Mm.
impact, isn't it? And then the longer term impact, because it's like Russian dolls, these systems of systems of systems, of course.
Mm.
So what do you see happening in the next couple of years?
So the two priorities for me are this. Firstly, the provider, the local provider that we've chosen to work with, who have been very highly regarded by some US academic institutions. So we're really confident in this local provider. We They're currently helping 1,000 former child miners.
Wow.
Our desire is, as a first base, if you like, is we'd
Mm,
like to double that number. So we'd
okay.
like to get from them having 1,000 children in their program to having 2,000 in their program. That's still only scratching the
Yeah,
surface, but you've got to start somewhere, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And I think it is small islands of coherence
Mm,
that bring collective impact. That's my school of thought, and I'm happy to be challenged on that. But I think with such a
totally.
huge system, you can only do what you can do. So you do small things in a big way.
I am a huge believer in persistence, in continually and
Mm,
diligently doing the right things again and again and again.
mm.
And I don't, never bet against somebody that won't give up. That's what I think. So,
Yeah.
and having seen what I've seen,
Mm,
and Carl and I, we won't give up. We will continue to push this. And
mm,
so I think our partners on the ground are good and we will continue to invest in them. And you're quite right. 1,000 can become 2,000, can become 10,000.
mm.
We do have to change the system as well. And so
Yeah.
that's the other key priority is to continue advocating on behalf of this problem and then also working with business leaders to identify things they can actually do.
Mm,
Right. I've got friends in manufacturing. They get no choice about the products they buy. I was talking to somebody before this call today,
mm,
buys circuit boards from China. There is nowhere else he can
mm,
buy those circuit boards from. Nowhere.
mm.
Cannot buy them in Europe, the UK, the US, or anywhere other than China. So there's a supply chain resilience issue here that needs to
Mm,
be addressed. And that will bring together both policy and business leadership.
mm. And so you have people on the ground, you have people within the systems. Are you looking for other types of partnerships as a way of scaling what you're going to do, or are you going to keep the same partner and just try and give them more resource? How does that work?
Yeah, so we're definitely keen to scale our involvement with the partner that we currently have, but they only work in one part of the DRC. So they work in Kolwezi, which is the town that we visited, and very
Okay.
close to the mine that we saw. So
Mm,
that's lovely. But the DRC is a huge country.
yeah.
Check this. The DRC is the size of Western Europe.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's
It's
huge.
huge, right?
Yeah.
It's where we were. So people say, "Oh, well, isn't there a war in DRC? And weren't you really unwise to go to a war zone?" And where we were is as far from the war zone as I am from the Ukraine right now. That's
Wow.
tells you how the scale is something
Mm,
completely alien to us, I suppose. So we are looking to build the existing partnership, but then we will look for other on the ground partners that we can work with to scale the work throughout the DRC.
mm,
And then here in the UK, we already have, and we're looking to build more of these encouraging partnerships that want to systemically address the issues. And so, great example is this technology solution we're looking at. We're working with data providers who have specialisms in illicit networks around the world,
hmm
feeding that into a platform that can inform businesses about what actually goes into the things that they make in their organization.
mm.
So,
And if I come back to impact, Mark, we've spoken about the next couple of years,
mm.
but what is, and it's a larger question, but I'm sure you, knowing you, I'm sure you have an answer to this. What is the legacy that you would like to leave through this partnership, but also through what you're doing with Start by Enterprises and the new collaboration that you're setting up, because they all do the same thing. They're all focused on charities, focused on the human side of business and whatever we do, and looking to make the world a better place. Or should I say that's my view on what you do. So, what does your legacy look like, Mark?
I think we exist in broken incentive structures currently,
Mm,
and if Freedom and Justice Partnership and Start Bay and any other ventures that I'm involved with can do two things. One is to rectify broken and flawed incentive structures that cause damage to both the environment and people,
mm,
then we will have done a really, really good thing. And if we can also and simultaneously bring about relief for people who are often unseen but suffering greatly, then that will be a really wonderful thing too. Which might sound a bit Nirvana like, but if we get 1% of the way there, that would be a good thing. So my goal is to both work systemically and also on the ground.
mm.
So I think that would be good.
And it's a nice thing to think, isn't it, that however big the system, we still have our agency individually, and we can still do something to help our immediate concentric circles of that ecosystem, if you like.
Absolutely. And I think, you used a very important word there, agency. I don't want the people, it wouldn't be my desire for the people of the Congo to become dependent on charity.
Mm,
Um,
yes.
they deserve agency as much as I do. So as much as I want the agency to be able to go into a shop and choose, if I spend an extra £50, I can get a phone that's truly clean and very good quality. I don't have that agency at the moment. I'd really like to have it.
Mm,
Similarly, I would love for the children and families of the Congo to have the agency to build meaningful and productive lives that are safe without relying on, charity from other places. That's got to be the goal. Nothing wrong with charity. Charity is needed,
mm,
but charity must never seek to create dependency.
absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes it's a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're very conscious of that,
Mm,
right? We're
mm,
deeply respectful of the people that we met and the
mm.
families who experience things that we can barely imagine, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one of the objectives of doing these episodes during Podcasthon is to increase outreach, increase impact, create a bigger ecosystem, if you like. What is a word or an ask mark that you might have of people listening that you would like them to go away with?
If you're really interested in this topic, I would ask you to go onto our website, freedomandjusticepartnership.org, and read an article called Hell on Rare Earth. That will open your eyes. That is a very raw piece that was written shortly after I returned from the Congo. Please go onto the website, read that piece. It's only a couple of pages long, and there is a donation button on the website if you'd like to help us after reading that piece.
Okay, super. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and explain your story, the Freedom and Justice Partnership, and to share your quest with everyone. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for having me today, Susie.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.